Hey everybody. So I was going to record this outside because it's been a beautiful day today, but just as I got everything ready to go out there, it seems like everybody decided to start mowing their lawns at the same time. So we're going to do this inside. So it's been a crazy week. So much going on and so much kind of stress because of it that my face has been breaking out all over the place. I'm nicely in shadow, so you can't see it all as much. Just a lot of stuff going on with the volunteering work that I do, a lot of print projects and design projects that need to get out the door ASAP. Had some fun with some friends. Gosh, was that last Friday already? We did a kind of a paint and wine homebrew kind of thing. You know, we didn't go anywhere special that does it. We just kind of met at one of our friends' house, and we painted a picture, and I'll put that picture up here, and had some wine and some hors d'oeuvres, and it was a lot of fun. We decided we're going to try and do this monthly, and so I'm hosting the next one, and we're going to do some glass etching, so that'll be fun. We tried to come up with a name for it, like, what do we call this? And we kind of came up, because it was painting and wine, we're like, swish and swallow. It doesn't quite fit for the other things, but it stuck, so that's what we're doing. We even have a logo for it. It's kind of funny. And then got to hang out with some other in-laws, and had a blast with them the other night. We've got some exciting things coming and brewing. I can't tell you yet, but I'm excited for it, and I can't wait. We had a meeting about it last night, and we had so much fun. I can already tell this is going to be a great, fun project, or slash a never, or possible, career thing. So I'm excited. I can't wait to share it with you all once it's ready to be released. So just be on the lookout for that. Been making some food. The one I'm going to show you in this episode is my great aunt's beef stroganoff, and I think I talk about this in the video as well, but this recipe is my great aunt's on my father's side. Growing up, I would go to their house every weekend, just about every weekend, and it was actually kind of funny because I would beg my parents like all week, like, I want to go. My grandmother and her sister, my great aunt, lived together in Highland Park, St. Paul, and so I would bug them to go every weekend. So they dropped me off after work on Friday, and by Saturday afternoon I was ready to come home. Just family politics, and really there was no kids on that block of Highland Park to play with. Really, it was just me. But I would be there till Sunday usually. Most of the time I had fun. She's also the one that really inspired me to be a creative individual. My great aunt would sew, she would paint, she tried her hand at pastels, she loved to cook and bake. Anything creative, she was probably up for it. So she was always my biggest proponent of, being creative and letting that shine through. Later on, when I became a graphic designer, she was always very impressed with all of the stuff that I would produce. So I owe a lot to her. And where I get my for sewing and all that stuff. But she would cook, and having been there every weekend, I learned how she would cook. And I think I mentioned this in the video. But like for baking, I know that she would always typically sift her flour. So even if the recipe doesn't say, sift your flour or whatever, I know that if I want it like how she made it, I would need to sift it. For cooking, I'd know how her timings on things, how long she'd, kind of her flow in the kitchen. So I'd know how long she would let something simmer for or whatnot. We didn't always cook and bake together, but I was in the house enough to know and to watch. But beef stroganoff is usually something we always had around the holidays, mainly because I would beg for it. It was one of my most favorite meals of hers to make. I don't know what it was. I've always loved pasta, but something about the beef stroganoff, it was just magical to me growing up. The flavors, the creaminess, just everything. I just loved it, and I don't know why. So when she passed, I didn't get a chance to get that recipe from her, but then as we were moving my grandmother out of the house, because my great aunt passed first. They came across the recipe box, and my grandmother didn't really do a lot of the cooking. She would do some, but really that was all up to my great aunt Muriel. So I got the recipe box, but a lot of it, as I went through it, had triplicates or quadruplicates of recipes, and they were all different versions of the same recipe. So I never knew which one. So it was a little bit of trial and error, but I stumbled upon nowhere in there actually was a real beef stroganoff one. There was one from Lund's, and I knew that was not it, just because some of the ingredients in there is like, no, these have shortcuts in it, and this is not the one that she made. But I had stumbled finally upon a cookbook that she had, and there were some notes inside the cover where she wrote beef stroganoff, page blah blah blah, something else, page blah blah blah. So I knew this book is probably where she went to get those recipes. And I pulled it up, and sure enough, it looked more like maybe what she would make. So I tried it out, and sure enough, it was doing all of her things that I've learned over the years, and sure enough, it tasted just like hers. Like I was back in her dining room eating beef stroganoff at Christmas time. I rewrote the recipe slightly, just based on some of the stuff that she knew, plus I had to double it because we love it so much. Actually, she would always double it too. That was the thing. She never made it just for 4 people, or 6. She had to make it for like 12. And we love it so much, so I've always doubled it. So that's what you're going to see in the video that I'm cooking this time. It came out a little thin. It didn't thicken as much as it normally does, so I will say the pots you use do have something to do with how your items boil and thicken and simmer, because when I use my stainless steel stock pot for this, it thickens fine. I used my new Pampered Chef non-stick ones that are a little thicker and a little more shorter, and I don't know, something about this one, I don't know. Something just didn't let it thicken as much. So I don't know, I might have to play with it a little and tweak it. So if you feel like it's not thickening enough for you, you won't be able to really fix it at that point. You could try and put some xanthan gum or some cornstarch to help thicken, but I don't recommend it. What I would do is the next time you make it, there's 2 stages where you add flour, but the second stage where you add flour to make more of the roux, add some more flour if you feel you need to, and that might help thicken it later on in the stage. But it's only Tuesday. My gosh, I still have a lot to do this week. I'm teaching I'm giving a lecture or a session at the North Star Genealogy Conference with my friend Christy next week. So I'm preparing for that, preparing for this new endeavor, have more print projects that we have to oversee and get out the door. I'm still looking for a job, but I still have not sat and read through the Vegan Before 6 book that I need to. So it's been a struggle to get started on trying to eat healthier and lose some weight before my cruise next year. I can tell you that for me, motivation has always been a huge issue. Like, if I'm super excited about something, I can totally get motivated and get behind it, and I'm ready to work it and do what I can for it. But when it's something like changing my food habits or trying to exercise, it's just like my body and my brain are like, no, I don't want to. And so it's been a real struggle being motivated and keeping going, because I love food. I love to eat. I don't necessarily eat a lot. My problem is, like, I don't eat a lot of junk food. I don't eat a lot of sweets. We rarely have that stuff in the house. My problem is I don't eat enough throughout the day because I just get so busy with stuff. Like, they say you should have like 6 to 7 or 6 to 8 or whatever it is, mini snack / meals throughout the day to keep your metabolism going. Well, I get so caught up, even just doing the 3 meals a day, I get so caught up in whatever I am doing, and time passes that I don't realize, oh God, I've been working on this project now for 4 hours. I've just missed a meal. And then it's like, well, it's only like 2 hours away from the next one, so I'll just wait. So then dinner finally rolls around. Like, I don't eat breakfast, so then I'll miss lunch. Dinner will roll around, and I'll be like, okay, now I'm starving. So I'm not just going to have one plate or one helping. And a plate for me probably would be like 2 or 3 helpings on that plate. I'm going to have 2 or maybe 3 plates because I'm starving, which I know is not good. And so my body gets all that stuff at once, has to pack it away, and then it's an endless cycle. But so I'm going to end this. So enjoy watching Beef Stroganoff, and I hope you find it absolutely delicious. It seems like a lot of work and a lot of ingredients, but it's actually, once you have everything prepped, it's really pretty quick. It's a wonderful, wonderful meal. It's just such flavor and such creaminess, and yeah, it's one of those meals that have, lasted the test of time or whatever they say, but it's a classic, and it's a classic for a reason. It's just amazing. And every time I eat it, like I said, I feel like I'm right back in her dining room, like she's right here with me. If I had to ever ask for a last meal, this would probably be it. Would be beef stroganoff. It's one of the rare dishes to me that just feels like home. I know people have their special meal that no matter where they are, if it's done right, it's like they're right back at home. And this is the one for me. So enjoy, and I'd love to hear what you think. If you've tried it, let me know what you thought. I'd love to hear your comments. Until next time. Hey everyone, so tonight we are making my great aunt Muriel's recipe of beef stroganoff. I don't know if she's pulled this from somewhere else or where it originated from. She was a fan of Lund's, and they used to always have throughout the store little recipe cards you could pull off the shelf and take with you. So I'm betting it's probably one of those. But I think I did also find it in another cookbook that she had, and it had an asterisk next to it. So it's very possible it came from that cookbook. I'll have to dig it out and find out. So we have all of our ingredients here in quite a few bowls. It looks like a lot more work than it really is, just because I haven't quite organized my space yet. So we'll get to that. The first part I want to do is I've got a pot of water boiling, and for the egg noodles, because that's going to take a while. So the first thing we get to do is combine 4 tablespoons of flour and 2 teaspoons of salt in a large bowl, and we're going to coat the meat. So I've already got the flour split out. So here's the 1/4 of a cup and the salt, and I'm just going to mix that up a little bit. And then I have my trusty sous chef here, because I don't like touching meat. She's going to touch the meat, and she's going to put it in this bowl, and she's going to move it around so that the flour coats it, because we want it to absorb some of the moisture of the flour. And we are going to heat the skillets at the same time here, so we'll do that on about medium high. I have quite a large pan, a very extra large, it's bigger than my head kind of a pan. Since I have a larger pan, I'm going to set the temperature a little higher than what my recipe normally would say, because it's such a large surface area to heat. Okay, so grab the meat, dump her in, and she gets the messy task. So she gets to have fun with that, to make sure they're all separated and coated. This will help so that the steak bites do not clump up together as much in the pan, because you don't want them to cook and like seal together here. I'm using top sirloin beef. It just works a little better. It doesn't become as chewy. I have used stew meat in the past, but that, when it gets cooked, becomes a little more tougher, because that's really meant to sit in a stew. So you can either use top sirloin or top round or top round, I think. Um, now beef tenderloin or sirloin steak is what the recipe calls for. So that's what I use, and you cut them into about 1/4 inch strips. And I leave them only about 2 inches long. You don't want them unruly. You want them kind of bite-sizable. Make sure they're all separated pieces too, as much as possible. I'm going to take this butter and heat it in the skillet. I have doubled this recipe because we like beef stroganoff a lot, so I like it to last a little bit. So this is 8 tablespoons of butter that needs to melt in the pan. Okay, so I have the butter melted in the pan, so she is going to now drop these pieces in for me.
Kind of like
yep, just sprinkle them in. You want this at a little bit of a higher temperature because you do want to brown the meat quickly on both sides. You do not want to cook it all the way through. You do want to keep some pink in the middle because you will be continuously cooking it in other stages. Plus, if you like your steak kind of pink in the middle, that's how you would want the final product to be. So you just want to brown this quickly on both sides. So you do want a little bit higher temperature to kind of sear it. You can tell why I use such a large pan is because of just how much meat I'm cooking. I don't want it to crowd, just like with mushrooms. And I'm trying to keep things separated as I'm cooking it. At some point you will need to manually flip these over just to get the other side browned. Now that this is pretty browned, I need to add in the mushrooms, onions, and garlic. So let's do that. And I forgot to prep the mushrooms. Oh, that's like...
onions are good. Cooked up a little bit.
Yeah, so there's that. We're going to I'm using garlic paste just because it's a lot easier. And we need 4 cloves. Yeah, it's about 4 cloves. This is why you prep beforehand, because I have forgotten to chop my mushrooms. And they need to go in now. So I've had to turn the heat off on my stove so that I don't keep cooking the meat. I may have shown this before. I'm going to show it again. The easiest way to clean mushrooms is to fill a bowl with water so that you can dunk them. And then you just press them down and move them around. The sediment and dirt will fall to the bottom. You just move them around like so. And then I'm going to have Cindy help. And we're going to just put a few on. Chop and dump. Okay, so now I've got the mushrooms all sliced and in. I'm turning the heat back up on my beef. And now we will cook this until the onions and mushrooms are tender. I like to use fresh mushrooms or whole mushrooms. I don't like to use the ones in the can. You can use them in the can. If you're going to use a can, it's 2 cans of the 6-ounce mushrooms that have been sliced and drained. If you're going to use fresh, it's about 2 packages of mushrooms. Put that right here because we're going to need to strain this out. To help this along a little bit, because I don't want to cook the meat too much, I'm going to put a cover on it. This way it'll keep the heat in and it'll help cook down the mushrooms. You could also pre-cook the mushrooms and toss them in when you're ready. We're going to stir this frequently. This is why I don't cook my steak too much in the beginning when you brown it, because you've got to also cook down the mushrooms. If you're doing the cans, then yes, you can cook your beef a little longer. But since I'm doing the fresh mushrooms, okay, I think that's cooked down enough. So now what we need to do is we need to take the steak, the mushrooms, and the onions out of the pan, but try to leave as much of the juices and kind of this gravy mixture that's been made in the bottom, because now we're going to need to make a roux to thicken up the sauce. So you're going to need something that's got holes, that's kind of mesh-like. This is from Pampered Chef, and it works out really great to scoop up, and then I can still get the liquids out. You can see some of the sauce just dripping out of that. Instead of making a stroganoff, what you could do with this sauce too, that's left over if you were doing something else with beef and mushrooms and onions, is you could then use those drippings to make a beef gravy, beef mushroom gravy. Now, about at this point is when I switch to a stock pot because of how much I'm making. So now we're going to swap. And I'm going to pour these drippings in. So now we're going to turn this back on to about medium so we can do the next part. We've got a good amount of drippings here, so we are going to do the next step, which is another 8 tablespoons of butter that we will melt in this pan, right? Once that butter is melted in here, then we're going to be adding in a half a cup of flour, and that we'll use a whisk, and that will help us make a nice roux. It's probably better if you use softened butter. This will go quicker. Unlike me, who decided to use, straight from the fridge. Okay, so we've whisked in the flour. So now we are going to add in the 4 tablespoons of tomato paste. And we're going to whisk that in as well. I don't know if you can tell, but that's become now like a orange color. And now we stir in the beef broth. You might not be able to see this on camera because I'm going to need 2 hands. Oh, so I'll just whisk that. So in here is 5 cups of hot water, and I'm using my beef stock. So there's 5 teaspoons of beef stock, so I will just whisk that in, and then we will quickly pour and whisk. Normally I would say do it little by little, but it's with that much of amount, it's harder to do. We want to make sure it's completely whisked and incorporated as much as possible. And now this we will let simmer over high heat until it's thick and bubbly. Our pasta is ready to be cooked. I like to use the medium egg noodles just because I like them a little smaller. You can use the wide or the extra wide, but that just seems like a lot. So we'll cook those for 7 minutes until they're done. Oh, this I was supposed to cover. Can you grab me the cover for this one? So then once that is thick and bubbly, We will then take our beef and mushroom and onion mixture and put it back into the pot and mix it all together. And then we will add in our sour cream and some white wine. That's what I'm missing. I knew there was something I did not take out. So eventually, I'll need to get the white wine. We want to make sure we're stirring this occasionally so that the bottom doesn't scorch. It's getting a little thick, but it's still quite thin. Okay, I don't want to cook it too much. So I think that'll be okay, because this will thicken as it cools when we add in the sour cream. So I'm going to move that down to medium. And we're going to add back in the beef without splattering ourselves. The flour that is still a part of this might help thicken it as well. Okay, and now we will add in the sour cream and the white wine. So we'll pour in the white wine. This is why I transferred to a stock pot, just because there is so much here. So this is 4 cups of sour cream, because this is such a large batch.
You need this one, both, those two?
Yep. The easiest way to measure that is there are 2 cups in one of these medium containers. So you need 2 of these. If you are not allowed to have a lot of cream and fat, this is definitely not a recipe for you. And I am sorry for that. And now we stir all that in carefully. If I had a bigger pot, I should have put it in my other larger pot so I had a little more room to stir vigorously to ensure that this mixes well. So now we will cook slowly until all the sour cream and everything is heated through, but you do not want it to boil, because then you'll just curdle your cream. And that would be bad. So you can see it starting to get a little creamier here. We just want to make sure we got it all incorporated. I still feel and see some large white chunks of sour cream. Then once this is done, then we will turn off the heat and just let it stand until it thickens to our consistency. So I will take it off of the hot burner. So I think we've got it pretty much incorporated. There's a few stragglers, but I think that's okay. We just want to make sure it's heated through. Okay, I think this is heated through enough. So now I'm going to turn off the heat, and I'm going to move it to the back burner where it hasn't been cooking. And we're just going to let it sit to thicken. I just want to cover it a little. Not a lot, just enough so things don't get in it, but I still want heat to escape. And that is how you cook my great aunt's beef stroganoff. And once you've got everything prepared, it's actually pretty quick, about maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, give or take. I'm not great with time, so who knows. So you can serve it over the egg noodles like we're doing, or you can also take and do a reversed cowboy stroganoff in a sense. You can serve it over mashed potatoes or other kinds of noodles. It doesn't have to be egg noodles, but egg noodles work the best. So there you have it. It is yummy delicious. I'll try and put a picture at the end here. So if you like beef and you like pasta, you will love beef stroganoff. Enjoy! Or as Julia Child would say, bon appetit!